and welcome to our presentation on the Respadon project. My name is Jennifer Morival, and I'm a librarian at the University of Lille.
And I'm Dorothée Benhamou. I'm working at the BNF in the Digital Legal Deposit Service, and I'm participating in the Respadon project with Jennifer.
So today we're going to tell you about the Respadon project, the goal of which is to support and expand research use of French web archives. Respadon is an acronym. Its name in French means a network of partners to explore and analyze digital data. It is a 2-year project that was launched exactly 1 year ago. It's supported by national funding, the Codex Percé program, and is undertaken by the National Library of France, usually referred to by its acronym BNF, and the University of Lille, which is a large multidisciplinary university. We're working in partnership with several other institutions of research and higher education. There's Sciences Po, which is a well-known research institution in political science, and the Campus Condorcet, which is a big research infrastructure in the humanities and social sciences. There are also 2 laboratories that are involved with this project. There's Jericho at the University of Lille and the Media Lab at Sciences Po. The idea of this network of partners is to bring together these various research institutions with their broad academic communities whose members are potential users of web archives. The 2 scientific coordinators are Emmanuel Bermès at the BNF and Marie-Madeleine Giraudet at the University of Lille. The project coordinator is Céline Ferjou. The starting point of this project was recognizing that web archives, and specifically the BNF legal deposit web archives, represent a huge opportunity for research that offer possibilities for data mining and analysis for researchers in many scientific disciplines, but they're not currently widely used. The Respadon project has 2 ambitions. First, it aims to support broader use of the web archives by researchers who may be using the web archives as one source among many, rather than just web historians who focus solely on web archives. The second ambition is to lower what the scientific coordinators of the project call the methodological and technical cost of entry for researchers, because it's not easy to get started using web archives when you're not already familiar with that resource. One of our goals, therefore, is to lower the barriers that researchers face when they start working with web archives.
In this purpose, we've been following a 3-fold approach. So the first idea is to analyze actual and potential uses of web archives, and therefore we rely on a usage analysis. We are also developing a network of partners, as I mentioned previously, and above all, we are conducting experimentations and following a step-by-step approach, which will allow us to make improvements over the course of the project in order to finally be able to devise and formulate recommendations and best practices. So the project aims at collecting reproducible examples of services built around web archives collections, but more generally around a digital heritage collection. So now we are going to present further 3 work packages of the project. First of all, we are going to tell you more about this usage study. And then we will give you more details about 2 different experimentations that are conducted during the project. The first one is about installing a remote access point to web archives at the University of Lille. And the second one is about adapting the web crawling and curation tool Hive to web archives. So let's start with work package 2. This work package is conducting a usage study that will provide the scientific ground of the project. It's led by Laurence Favier, who is the head of Jericho, a communication and information science laboratory at the University of Lille. So this usage study will combine different phases and different types of data in order to analyze both actual and potential uses of web archives. So first of all, the work package is working to elaborate a typology based on the analysis of previous projects that have been supported at the BNF over the past years. So the point here is to determine what were their goals while engaging with web archives, what were their objects, their methods to build a corpus, and their methods of harvesting. And the main criteria chosen for the typology are what were their needs in terms of support and what kind of services were developed by the BNF to answer those needs. And secondly, qualitative interviews are conducted with BNF web archivists, but also and mostly with researchers. And what's important to note here is that not only researchers who are engaging with web archives are interviewed, but also researchers that might have an interest in using them. And so the idea behind this is of course, to understand the reasons why they don't use web archives. Is it, for example, because they are collecting their own web materials by themselves, because they don't need historical depth in their research, or for any other reasons?
Work Package 3 deals with testing a remote access point at the University of Lille. It's led by Marie Cross at the University of Lille and Sarah Aubry at the BNF. In putting into place this remote access point at the University of Lille, we're dealing with a variety of issues related to legal aspects, technical aspects, and the question of the mediation that we're going to put into place. For the technical aspects, the access point will provide remote access to the legal deposit web through the BNF's Open Wayback application. We've chosen a specific collection, the 2002 Presidential Election Collection, for which we'll be providing an additional set of tools and data sets for researchers to work on. Different kinds of analyses and text and data mining will be possible on this specific collection. In terms of the legal aspects, we had to define a legal agreement between the National Library and the University of Lille to allow the experimentation to take place, and hopefully will help shape the evolution of current legal restrictions on the web archives. The researchers who participate will sign a charter in which they commit to respecting the limitations on data use and reuse, and they also commit to giving us feedback so that we can evaluate how things are going on the access point and make improvement. The question of mediation is very important to this project. The BNF is providing training and helping develop the skills of the mediators at the University of Lille, and we are working together to develop the services and the documentation. The mediators at the University of Lille, librarians, are well aware of the needs of their research communities. We've already identified some potential testers among them based on their research interests and their methodologies, particularly in the political science laboratory. So the idea is that we'll work together to build upon this knowledge and collectively imagine what services we should be offering around this collection. The goal of this access point is to test and then improve the tools and services that are included in the experimental protocol. This will have 3 phases. There are 3 itineraries that researchers who volunteer to participate can go through. The first one is discovering the web archives. So the mediators will do a short presentation of the web archives, explain how they're collected, how to use the Wayback tool, and then the researchers have access to the collections for consultation. They also have the possibility to contribute to current electoral web selections, since the French legislative elections will take place soon in June of 2022.
And so the second and the third phases are more in-depth itineraries. They are a way of going further with the archives, and therefore additional tools and services will be proposed. So for these phases, as Jennifer said, we have chosen to focus on a small corpus, the French 2002 presidential election. And we are going to use Iipc members tools. So a Solar Wayback will be proposed to explore this collection, and statistics and data sets to help understand the collection will also be available. And that includes data sets generated with the Archives Unleashed toolkit. And the third phase is designed to observe and allow advanced use of web archives. And so researchers that who volunteer will be offered, for example, the possibility to make appointments with BNF experts. They will be able to generate derivatives by using scripts. And also they will be able to use the Archives Unleashed toolkit to analyze and mine the collection.
So this work package is using a step-by-step approach for the experimentation. We want to observe the uses that are actually made of the web archives by the researchers who volunteer. We want to find out what's useful and what's missing in terms of the tools and services and documentation to make it easier to use the collections. The feedback will be gathered by the mediators at the University of Lille through short interviews at the end of the tests of the remote access point.
And eventually, all this should allow us to produce recommendations and how to be able to install new remote access points in the future in other universities. So those recommendations should cover all the aspects of the experimentation. It means the legal, the technical aspects, the tools and services, but also the documentation and the staff training. So now we are coming to work package 4. which is conducting another experimentation and is about using Hive on web archives. It's led by Eleonora Moiraghi from Sciences Po in close collaboration with Sciences Po Media Lab. So Hive is an open source web crawler and corpus curation tool developed by Sciences Po Media Lab. It is broadly used by digital humanities and social sciences researchers, mainly to explore communities on the living web. So the technical aspects of the work package involves making evolutions on Hive to make it work on BNF web archives and also on Internet's Wayback Machine. So the idea behind this experimentation is, of course, to build a community and to bring together researchers familiar with studying the live web and researchers familiar with web archives. So, and one of the highlights of this experimentation was the organization of a data sprint that took place at the beginning of April in the BNF Data Lab. And so there were 4 teams with various profiles and skills: researchers, web archivists, collection experts, Hive experts, and information designers. And the idea was to have a moment limited in time to deal with the methodological questions that arise when trying to use Hive on web archives collection, such as, for example, how to compare live web corpora with archived web corpora or archived web corpora from different periods, and how can we represent the evolutions of web networks over time with Hive or with other tools. And so the data sprint was a way to quickly overcome the methodological obstacles that might arise when doing so.
Here's an overview of the data sprint and the research questions that were explored by the 4 teams. In the pictures, you can see the group rooms at the BNF Data Lab and some of the graph links that were produced. So the 4 projects, the first one looked at the COVID-19 crisis and the relationships between the various web actors. The second one looked at the structuration of political communities around candidates in French presidential elections. They focused on the example of Jean-Luc Mélenchon in 3 different years. Another group worked on online criticism of the performing arts and made a cartography of the actors involved. And the last group worked on the concept of the genome and whether and in what ways that was present in French political discourse on the web. So we'll conclude by telling you about the work package 1, which deals with strategy. It's led by the 2 scientific coordinators of the whole project, Emmanuel Bermès at the BNF and Madeleine Giroudet at the University of Lille. This work package organizes workshops. The idea is to work collaboratively on the main issues underlying the project and the issues that cut across the various working groups. It's a series of 3-hour workshops. There are 8 workshops that are planned, and the goal is to come up with recommendations that will contribute to the final report of the project. So these workshops regularly bring together a range of experts from the various partners of the project, so representatives of each member institution, representatives of Codex, which funds the project, members of the National Audiovisual Institute, and also invited members who come for one workshop in particular, depending on the subject. These workshops are therefore an opportunity to bring together librarians, web archivists, and researchers to discuss professional practices and research use and contribute to building this network of partners. At the end, after the workshops, there are public restitutions of 30 minutes of these workshops that are given via video conference, and they are available on the project website.
So, and if you want to learn more about the project, you can visit the project blog or follow us on Twitter. And we also wanted to announce some upcoming events. So first of all, there is going to be a website documenting the outcomes of the data sprint. Audrey Banex, Eleonora Moiraghi, and I are giving a presentation about the data sprint at the Humanistica conference on May the 21st. And in 2023, there will be the international closing conference of the project, for which there is soon going to be a call for participation.
Thank you very much for your attention, and hopefully we'll be able to share results of this project at next year's Web Archiving Conference.